Hey folks, sorry I'm just a few minutes late here. If y'all give me like 2 or 3 minutes, I'm posting something from my last class real quick to Moodle, and then I'll be joining us. Okay, just give me like 2 or 3 minutes here. Moodle's the slowest like upload portal on the history of like the internet. I feel like I'm in dial-up still. Y'all agree with that? Just to like send a message, it takes like 5 minutes. Ugh, I'll be right back. All right. I think I've uploaded everything I can. Really, that was like 3 or 4 files that I just uploaded in all that time. This bananas. Well, hello everybody. Happy 4th of July Eve. Hope you all are as tired as I am of the fireworks that were going off at 2 a.m. right outside my door in the middle of the city. I really don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's teens, right? But I mean, I get it. I used to be a teen, but I lived out in the country, and my nearest neighbor was like 7 miles away. Yeah, I am
I
from.
don't mind the fireworks as long as people clean up after themselves. I don't
Well, we had some that hit our house last year, like bottle rockets or something. Yeah, and like, how you gonna track people? You can't like track them down because, but yeah, it's that freedom ring, I guess. I don't know. Um, well,
understand.
thank you guys for your patience from this past week. We just to catch everybody up, we will have class next Monday. So we'll have this class and then next Monday as well, just to kind of hopefully get us caught up a little bit better. Um, just got through with my adult and geriatric psychopathology course right before you guys just now, and had some really good conversations about women and ADHD and PMDD and things like that I also want to share with y'all. But those were the files that I was uploading to Moodle. But I also want to give you guys time and really reward you, I would say, for showing up, um, for asking questions related to quizzes or exams. And I won't give you the answers, but I think we will all get to a place where we agree with what the answers are not. Try to say that the way an attorney would say that. That's usually how they say stuff on the stand, and you're just like, I'm sorry, can you please repeat yourself? Because that was the most ridiculous question I've ever heard in my entire life. That's usually what they're my response. Or the judge is like, counsel, can you just be a little bit clearer in your questioning? It's usually what they'll say. And then the attorney falls out of their chair crying. It's like a cartoon character. Um, by the way, real quick, I had to testify recently, so it's on my brain. But even if you're not planning on going that route, please don't let that stuff scare you at all. Okay, you will probably have to show up to court at some point. You'll probably have to show up to testify at some point, especially if you're going to work with kids. And it's okay to say I don't know. Never make them make you show up for free. Okay, don't ever let them try to like make you show up for free. Not make them. Don't ever let them try to force you to show up for free. Um, I'm not telling you to do anything illegal, but everybody on the planet is getting paid up there whenever they force you to, with a subpoena to come show up. Usually the subpoena is called a subpoena ducis tecum, just so you know. Have you heard of that before? Yeah. Yep. So basically a subpoena ducis tecum is, you've got to show up with every like ink, you know, paper that you've ever written on, including billing and everything, the whole file, on a certain day, and are going to be required to testify. Now, in most cases, the judge is going to be on your side because most judges don't like attorneys either. So um, you're going to be you'll be asked to show up and answer questions, and a lot of times they'll try to get you to answer questions that you don't know, or that are outside of your area of expertise, or even if you had an opinion, it wouldn't even be ethical for you to share that opinion because it's got nothing to do with what you did. And in that case, just remember it's completely okay. And actually, probably the most ethical thing is just say, I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question. That's outside of I feel like that's outside of my ethical ability to respond. So don't ever let that stuff worry you. Does anybody plan on going in the forensic route? Rod, you're planning on?
Yeah, I want to do a lot of work with kids, especially in relationship to divorce.
Well,
So,
I'm surprised you're not already booked out, because I'm telling you, there's like three people in the state of Texas that specialize in that. So that's a niche area for sure.
well,
Yeah,
I've already
niche.
had I do supervised visitation, and so I've already been to court for that.
Yeah, I try to stay away from. I try to stay away from like custody stuff, and um, it's just going to happen. But in most cases, the the people requesting my presence don't want to pay the hourly rate that I charge for me to show up. And when they do, I still make them sign a form saying that I can't promise I will help or hurt anybody's case because I'm a clinical, uh, a fact witness, not an expert witness. So, but yeah, make them pay you. Always make them pay you, but they won't offer that. Just so you all know. Like always, when I first got subpoenaed, they're like, "Yeah, you gotta show up." This time I was real scared that the attorney was real like just a mean person. Real kind of a bully. Kept calling me, gosh, what do you say? Young gun. That's what he kept calling me. Well, young gun. It's like, what? Who says that? Are we from the Wild West? Um, but they won't tell you that like somebody will have to pay you, and especially if you've got it written in your policies that if you get called to court, and I'd be sure to have that written in your policy, like your practice policy, stuff like that. If you're a school counselor, well, I think you just have to go show up and then take probably PTO. I don't know how that works. I don't even know if they pay you. They're all supportive until that happens. All right. And somebody said, yep, there we go. Subpoena deuces tecum. You got it, Jill. Jill, do you know much about, you were shaking your head like you knew some of this stuff.
There's two Jills in the class,
Oh,
which
Cooper. Sorry. Yeah, I see Jill Brown, Jill Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had to go to court a couple of times, but so no, they don't, and because I'm a school counselor, and no, they don't pay us extra. They make us go in the summer, cancel vacation. If you get a subpoena, you just show up.
Yeah. By the way, you don't have to cancel your vacation. Just tell them that you're on vacation and you can't show up that day.
Yeah, my superintendent didn't go for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I showed up.
Man, I'm gonna convince y'all to come to the dark side and be professional counselors. You have a little bit more flexibility out there. Actually, no, you are doing the Lord's work, no doubt. And just whenever you want to retire, just decide to be a professional counselor and I'll hire you. How about that? Yeah. Awesome.
Dr. Armstrong, question.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had to quell or squash a subpoena, or have you any experience with that?
I mean, like the person being subpoenaed can't, but you can appeal to the judge and ask them to in relation. Like I've had to do it because some attorney was wanting me to give like all the copyrighted test material that I have, which would require me literally to call all the test publishers and get their written permission to release the copyright. Because I mean, it's all Like I'd be breaking the law. And the state of Texas now requires psychologists to do that before we release copyrighted material. And anyway, so what I did here, this is what I would encourage you to do. You're paying malpractice insurance, okay? Your malpractice insurance, it is in their best interest that you don't do anything illegal. Everybody agree with that? Makes sense. And they've got some attorneys that would love to talk to you before you make any decision that might be questionable. And they will do that for free. Well, I mean, you're paying your premium, but, and they won't market, you know, they won't tell you that they've got those people. But when I got to that point, I was just like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to call my malpractice insurance, tell them that I'm about to break the law and see if they can help me. And when I did, they're like, whoa, don't do anything yet. Hang on just a second. And like 30 seconds later, it was like, this is attorney, blah, blah, blah. How can I help? Yep. And they gave me some really good advice. And they even wrote up like to quash the appeal to the judge. So I didn't have to show up, thankfully, because they were asking me to show up like 400 miles away too, like 2 days later. Yeah. So that attorney wasn't real happy with me, but that's okay because we don't have to be friends. Yeah.
I do have a question that
Yay.
isn't related to or to change gears a little, and that is part of the ADHD. And I was curious, I'm hearing a lot of adults say that they have adult onset ADHD, but in reading the DSM, it really doesn't say, it doesn't specifically say you can't, but it strongly made me believe that you could not have adult onset ADHD. So I ask you, can adults get ADHD? I mean, I get it that you have it as a kid, but can you develop it in your, late 30s, 40s, 50s?
Sure. That's a great question, Ron. I appreciate you bringing that up because that's a little bit overlapped with what we were talking about last class too. So I would say this is you can verify everything I'm about to tell you in your own research, and I would encourage you to do your own research, but it is all there. All these puzzle pieces are out there, and the research is just like nobody's put them together fully yet. I'm not saying that I've fully done it either, but I'm just going to tell you where I'm at on it. We know that about 1/3 of the population have the underlying genetic predisposition for differences in their monoamine neurotransmitter network, including the way their dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, like neurotransmitter systems and underlying connections, and the dynamics of how it upregulates and downregulates and homeostasis goes. We know 1/3 of the population out there have a predisposition for developing or meeting the diagnostic criteria for ADHD, autism spectrum, schizophrenia, Tourette's, bipolar, and OCD. Okay. Now, you won't see that in the DSM-5 that all those have overlap, but you'll see them as rule outs and comorbidity. They'll talk a lot about comorbidity in the DSM-5. So we know that that's true. And we know that the DSM-5 is written at a level of discreteness between these diagnostic categories that is much more practical from a legal standpoint than it is from a clinical standpoint, which is why like things like bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 exist versus schizoaffective disorder, which is really like schizophrenia plus bipolar. So in other words, the DSM-5 is not necessarily caught up with where we're at in a neuroscience understanding and conceptualizing all this stuff. And I'll give you an example of that. I'm actually glad it's like you're reading my screen here. So here is, this is the Neuropsychiatry and Adolescent or Children and Adolescents. It's just a book that, I read like on vacation and stuff, on planes to get people to not talk to me. But just kidding. I'm always like talking to people like until they ask me what I do, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna be quiet the rest of the time." But so here's an example of some overlap with a kiddo that has Tourette syndrome, OCD, ADHD, GAD, and intermittent explosive disorder, right? So like here's all this stuff kind of mixed together. I'm showing you this because there is absolutely solid research to suggest that all of this stuff has overlap. And when it comes to ADHD, I want you to know that all of those diagnoses, well, let me just start with ADHD and then we'll work through it. ADHD only exists in situations where it causes dysfunction. So in other words, you can have ADHD, the brain, but if you were a billionaire, let's say you're a billionaire's kid on an island where you own the island or your parents own the island, you had no personal responsibilities and you didn't have to do school or anything like that. Well, even if you had an ADHD brain, because it's not affecting you functionally, you wouldn't be diagnosed with ADHD. Same thing goes if you were that billionaire with ADHD. If you're an adult, it wouldn't be affecting you functionally there because it's not causing any disruption to your daily, ability or daily functioning. Even though you've got the neurology for it. So the diagnosis of ADHD hinges on how does it affect you functionally. And in many cases, to answer your question kind of quickly, you don't see ADHD actually affecting people functionally until the level of personal responsibility supersedes their frontal lobe's ability to compensate, which might not be until grad school, which might not be until they first get married or first have kids, might not be until, they're 45 and they took a promotion to a new job position. Even though that they've had the ADHD brain the whole time and technically never met the diagnostic criteria before, but now they do because their frontal lobe can't handle it. And so does ADHD, is it possible to not even have it and then turn 30 and for whatever reason you catch it like you would like COVID? Absolutely not. Like you've got to be in the unlucky 1/3 of the general population. By the way, it's 1/3 of us that have risk for all those things. It's the same underlying genetic risk, but you absolutely could be a 30-year-old who had it, but it was never causing enough dysfunction until now. That's adult onset ADHD.
Okay, gotcha.
Now, the question is, well, how do we know that they had it before and that, it's not just like dementia or they're not sleeping well or they're doing drugs behind their back? We don't know, right? Well, that's why we've got to do our due diligence and not just willy-nilly diagnose everybody that's 30 that's saying that they've got ADHD all of a sudden. We've got to make sure, okay, well, what's actually been going on? Tell me about your past. Tell me about, what medications are you on? What's your medical status, your physical status, what's your relational status, what's your job history, all that stuff, to try to compile as much data as you can to see, is this something that was likely there beforehand and it's just now manifesting because they've always had a little bit of that difficulty, but now it's just enough that's it's actually noticeable? Or is this like something brand new, which is probably going to be something like depression or, a sleep disorder is almost always a good explanation for a 30-year-old. But does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So basically, you don't suddenly get it as an adult. It's always been there, but it didn't really begin to manifest in visible ways until, as you said, the stress of life overtook your ability to compensate.
Yep.
Okay.
And here's the thing: is the truth is all of these diagnoses, or most of them anyway, imply that we live in a perfect world and that it is our fault. So I'll give you an example. COVID, as y'all all know, I mean, like if you work with teens, you guys know TikTok, right? I mean, like TikTok, and actually teens that don't even do like TikTok's like beyond, like they're like beyond TikTok now. I don't know what they're doing, but I've had so many like teens start questioning all kinds of different diagnoses and come in and tell me like they've got it memorized, the DSM-5, like, well, this I've got autism, this is why I've got autism, right? What they don't realize is, autism comes with like a lack of self-awareness. So like most people with autism aren't aware that they have autism. But my point there is that you've got um, a world that is asking or has put most of us, if not all of us, through more than what our frontal lobes can handle from a stress standpoint. And in many ways, trying to force us into, at least 1/3 of us anyway, beyond what we're neurologically capable. And when that happens, you're going to start seeing that 1/3, the majority of which have never been diagnosed with anything, start meeting diagnostic criteria that are arbitrary, by the way. Those are arbitrary cutoffs. And so what we're identifying is the 1/3 of the population basically out there that the world finally, or not finally, is continuing to exacerbate their brain and how it doesn't fit very well with the Western culture and the Western stress, and on top of COVID stress and all the stuff that we're exponentially trying to learn. Yeah.
That brings me to my next question.
Mm-hmm.
In the week 4 quiz, you had a question asking the FDA has green lighted, and you listed several options for medication for kids age 6 for depressants, or that were depressed, or I think it was I think that was the question, but it had Prozac, Zoloft, something I didn't understand what it was, and then I think it was none of the above.
Okay.
And so, not knowing, I took your suggested advice. I Googled it, and the FDA said Prozac, and the National Institute of Mental Health said Zoloft. Well, the first time I took the quiz, I clicked Prozac. It was wrong. I took it again. It came up, so I picked Zoloft. That too was wrong. I didn't get a chance for a third try on quiz number 4, so I'm not sure what the correct answer for that would be.
All right. Well, let's take a look at it.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No.
I don't want to. I make you tell me what the right answer is for those that maybe haven't taken week 4 quiz, but
hey, that's why we're here, and I'm glad you brought it up, because that's the benefit of showing up to class, is you get to ask those questions. And let's see. Can y'all see the power, or not the PowerPoint, the gosh, what am I doing?
I can see an article.
Yeah, I'm trying to show you. Got so many things open. Hang on.
The one that was not on the list was Lexapro, and my son at age 7 was given Lexapro.
Oh, mine was
Um,
given it at age 9, and it's been awful for us. We're not on it.
Lexapro.
He's not on
Mm.
it anymore.
Let me pull up week 4 quiz, and because that's right out of, and you're saying that the FDA has it approved for say Zoloft.
They said Prozac, and I mean, I did a Google search, and the FDA was one of the links. I didn't explore very far into it, I'm sorry to say. So it could have been a
There we go. Yep.
misdirect.
Yeah, and I'm gonna see if I can. I wish I could give you guys access to the Neuroscience Education Institute. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but you should look it up and become a member. I think as students, you get a really good discount on it.
What was the name again?
Neuroscience Education Institute, and I'll share the screen with you so you can see it. Yeah. So basically, you can type in any medication in here. This is Steve Stahl is a psychiatrist. He's kind of like one of the leading gurus on all things psychiatry and medication. Week 4 quiz. I'm gonna go with Zoloft. Let's see what Zoloft says. Because it's not Zoloft. All right. That's a confusing question, isn't it? Where did I get that from then? You know what I bet it is that Zoloft is for OCD down to age 6, but not for depression. Good grief. Well, that's why I like doing this stuff, because I find errors. Well, Rod, you just got everybody in class 1 point on that quiz. How about that?
Do I get that point back?
Mm-hmm. You will. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it basically it should be Zoloft.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
know. That's so weird because I've used this quiz before and nobody's ever had. I'm telling you, man, Moodle messes stuff up sometimes. I was wrong. Zoloft is OCD down to age 6. Oh, no. What am I doing, guys? I'm so sorry. I will give you the point because that's a confusing question, but the right answer is
None of the above.
None of the above.
Okay, because that was going to be my third choice,
Yep.
but it didn't give me it only let me take it twice.
Yep. I'm glad you pulled that up. But yeah, it is none of the above.
Okay.
Zoloft is FDA approved for OCD down to age 6, but not for depression. And there's
Okay.
nothing for major depressive disorder down to age 6.
Okay.
So in other words, it's not that it won't ever be prescribed, it's that you will see it prescribed off label. for depression down to age 6.
What do you mean by off-label?
So off-label is when something's not FDA approved for something. So like Wellbutrin, for example, will be used for ADHD treatment in teens a lot. You'll see that instead of a stimulant, especially if you've got depression plus ADHD. But Wellbutrin is not FDA approved for the treatment of ADHD, so it would be off-label use. What that means is when they prescribe it, and they just have to really document in their notes their rationale why, and it places them more at risk for going outside the lines of what would be clinically acceptable.
Okay.
Just from a
So what would be a good medication for 6-year-olds that have major depressive disorder?
I really like Prozac, honestly. The reason why is because Prozac goes down to, gosh, what is it? Yeah, you can get a capsule that goes down to 10 milligrams, and then you can even split that capsule and just like half the powder in half. And so like, I mean, you can get it to where you're doing like 5 milligram doses, and that's just a step above what you're getting in your tap water. And so for little kids, I mean, I know it's kind of an exaggeration, but I mean, we do have a lot of Prozac in our tap water, just FYI. But for little kids, you want to start really, really low. And especially like if you're worried about side effects, stuff like that, in my experience, just anecdotally, Prozac seems to work pretty well at really low doses for little kids.
Okay.
It makes you often will see a big difference. Yep.
Okay. So what would Lexapro work well for?
Lexapro would be the same, but I'm not a really big fan of Lexapro, to be honest with you. Even for adults. And so I rarely ever recommend Lexapro for anybody, even though it's the mildest of all the SSRIs. In other words, it's the least likely to have side effects, but it does just anecdotally have side effects. And with teens, especially, and teen girls, especially, I've seen it kind of throw off hormone stuff before. It's not, in my opinion, all that effective at treating depression. It's pretty good at, it helps a little bit with anxiety, but there are just there's some better things out there, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah. I really do like Prozac's the first essentially the first SSRI that came out. I like Prozac because it's cheap. Fluoxetine is super cheap. It's like 30 cents a pill or something like that. On top of that, if you miss a dose, you're not going to have any side effects. And kids, just compared to adults, tend to miss doses. And like Lexapro, if you miss a dose or two, like you're gonna feel the withdrawal effects if you've been on it for a while. Prozac, it takes 2 weeks for that to get out of your system. It takes 96 hours for the active compound in there, fluoxetine, to turn into norfluoxetine, which does exactly the same thing as fluoxetine does, but that takes 2 weeks to get out of your system. So you take one dose and you're going to have, fluoxetine and then norfluoxetine in your system for 2 weeks. And so you're not going to have any like withdrawal effects from it. Yeah. I know it's probably more than what you asked for, but I will give everybody a point on that. So I like doing these things. It ends up benefiting you guys. Yeah, I will. And if you've already taken that week 4 quiz, you'll get 1 extra point on it. So
thank you.
Good work. Good work, Rod. Yep. What other questions you guys have?
Kind of like to, I guess, parallel to what Rod was some of the point that Rod was trying to make. I work for a federally funded pre-K program, and a lot of the some of the kids, kind of like you said, that they really don't tend to prescribe ADHD until there's a need. And when the kids start school, as long as you're at home, you got free reign and you pretty much do what you want to do. But when it comes to a structured setting like the school, and it's time to sit down and pay attention and follow a structured format. A lot of the kids have concerns with that, and when they do, whenever I do a referral for the school to evaluate a child, um, and they're doing all kinds of stuff at home, and then and they ask the teacher, well, how is he in the educational setting? And the teacher said, well, he really doesn't have any, that much of a concern. They won't test. It has to affect the educational setting substantially before they will test. And plus, they're pre-K. They're really worried about fourth and fifth grade. They were like, let the babies develop, give them some time, yada, yada, yada. But if it's severe, they will, take it under advisement. But most of the times they don't really like to evaluate so young.
Yeah. And that's what's challenging, is that you guys at the end of this class will know more about ADHD and all this stuff than the systems in which you work. The challenge is that those systems, especially school systems, are basing decisions off of like TEA level, like policies and things that, in all honesty, in most cases don't come from science. They kind of just have shot from the hip, and they got together and they said, well, what do y'all think? Well, not until it's causing dysfunction, right? We're gonna test. Well, how do you define dysfunction? If your conceptualization of what ADHD is outdated by a decade at least, then you're not going to see the dysfunction that it's causing. Like, for example, kids with ADHD might not be affecting necessarily their academic, test scores, but it might be affecting their perception of school, of formal school settings. In other words, it might be conditioning them to hate school. And that's absolutely causing dysfunction.
School system is slow.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. Is I'll see, especially I see a lot of teens who, gosh, I had a teen the other day that was 99th percentile IQ who hates school, and they've got ADHD. It's mainly because they've been forced to go to school, and essentially like it's a place of punishment for them. I mean, that's what their brain has associated. It's been conditioned to anticipate failing. It's been conditioned to anticipate getting in trouble. Even though I'm telling you, this kiddo, like, there's no amount of school out there that they couldn't do. But the further in their story that they've gone, that's just been reinforced and reinforced. And mainly because they've never had treatment for their ADHD. And again, that's implying that our school system is perfect, and it's this kid's fault for not fitting into it. See what I'm saying? But I'm not saying that it's all ADHD or that there's not any personal responsibility there. There always is. And there's still hope even with a teen that hates school, because I've seen them figure it out and go to college and, or whatever. I've seen them go to med school even, and hate med school, but love being a doctor. But the truth is that if we can help our systems learn and catch up, because you guys are going to be the voice of reason, really, the voice of research and understanding, like, hey, no, it's not just because it's not causing academic difficulty, that doesn't mean there's no dysfunction here. There's a potential, if not already happening, for this kid to already be associating school with a negative place. And in the long run, that's going to cause severe academic underachievement.
It's like they look at the academic portion, but they don't look at the social emotional portion. It's so important.
Greg, are you wanting extra points? Because that's how you get extra points. Yep. Yep. I completely agree. And, you know, there are school districts that are trying, and most school districts have people employed whose job duty is to enhance the psychosocial, emotional stuff, you know, and I'm happy for that. But in a lot of cases, it's on paper, and then they don't give a lot of the resources that they really need. And so they're like, hey, do this job, but you can't do your job unless you want to get fired. Right. But that's why we're here and learning, because we're the ones that are going to change the system. That's you know, it's not anarchy. But we're gonna stand up to it. Here's my recommendation: is when you're working with parents or kiddos that you think that need testing like that. I'm obviously a little bit biased, but especially if it's ADHD. ADHD is going to be a 504 other health impairment issue. They don't even really technically need testing in order to get that documentation. That's a pediatrician, and some school districts allow me, non-physicians, to sign off on it, but usually it's an MD or DO that has to. But it's a one-page paper, as y'all know, that just says, you know, what do they have? They've got ADHD, and then you got to write like this old language that they use. It's like, does it affect their level of arousal and alertness, and you know, their vitality? What in the world does that mean? They seem, you know, real vital to me. I don't know, but they sign that one page, and then they're off and running with their 504. But as y'all know, the 504 little checklist that you get, that's not based on science. Somebody just got together and was like, well, what do y'all think ADHD kids need? Well, they need extra time. I'm here to tell you right now, I have ADHD. I don't need extra time, guys. You can give me a decade, and I'm still going to wait until the last day for the cutoff date. What I need is something built into my schedule that reinforces or rewards my incremental accomplishing of a task or goal. That's what kids need. But you're not going to see that on the checklist, because there's no way in the world schools can do that, because they're already getting you to, you know, there's 3 teachers for 4,000 students. That's why what I tell parents, when you work with parents, tell them this, is that, listen, there's a checklist, the 504 checklist, which is great, looks pretty, seems rational, but some of that stuff's probably not going to even help. Your real mileage is always going to be with each individual teacher, and how that each individual teacher, how you make their job easier with your kiddo by teaching them how to teach your kid. That's what it's about. Teachers aren't they're not gonna want to sign up for doing a bunch of extra stuff, but they will if it helps their job be easier. Did I give you guys the ADHD executive functioning, not ADHD, it's executive functioning strategies and interventions for kids and adolescents book that you could download? Well, if I didn't,
The handbook.
It's like a whole book.
Skills, and it's like 100 pages.
It's a bunch. Yeah. Wait,
Social
there's
skills,
autism one.
autism spectrum disorder. We got that one.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Let's see.
Executive functioning textbook resources. You got the handouts, but you should also have the whole book. Okay. I'm going to give that to you. So there's a book that I like to share with teachers that it's executive functioning interventions for kids and adolescents. It's good stuff for all kids, not just for kids with ADHD, but particularly good for kids with ADHD. So if they want to make their job easier, they're already, having to do all kinds of extra stuff all the time anyway. They might as well spend all that extra time actually using some resources that are going to help all the kids, especially the kids that are the harder ones to teach. I don't know why I didn't have it posted already.
Well,
Whole book, just not.
just do it because I just found the reproducible materials.
Yeah, I posted that, but I don't know why I didn't post the actual textbook that goes with it. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
I feel like I'm losing my mind sometimes, but like it's not just me. I know I'm a nutty professor. It is Moodle sometimes. I promise you guys. It really is. That's why when y'all email me, it's like, Dr. A, I was taking a test and Moodle told me that I'm the worst person ever, and then it kicked me out. Like, I believe you. I do. I'm always like, I get it. All right, let's fix it then.
Will that show up then under the week 3 where
Yep.
the other ADHD stuff is at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I'll put it in week 3. I'm gonna do it right now before I let y'all go. No, I'm sorry, it's week 2. That's where it's going. I don't know why. Hang on. I'll just put it in week 3. Yeah, so as long as you don't sell this stuff, I think I don't get in trouble, but you can print all this stuff out. It's a whole book. And it's by Peg Dawson, who's like the world guru on executive functioning interventions. Has anybody ever read any of her stuff, her other stuff that she's written, like what's it called? It's called Smart but Scattered. Yep. So Peg Dawson's one of the authors of that book, but also this book, Executive Functioning Interventions, not just the handouts, it's a whole book. But if you're a school counselor or school teacher, I would print this out and laminate it, and then think about getting it tattooed on your arms or something as a reference. I don't know if you believe in tattoos, but if you don't, just reconsider this one at least, because it's pretty important. Oh, that's what it was. Moodle's mad at me because it's such a large file. It wants me to put it in a zip file. How can I get around that? You'll give me like 2 seconds while you're just staring at me awkwardly in my face, and I will get this figured out. Oh, okay. I need to download it first. Well, I wonder if I could share this. All of these things. Huh. You know what I'm gonna do? I am gonna upload it, but I'm also gonna share it with you guys. Since you showed up to class tonight, I'm gonna share a link that you can download all of my resources for ADHD, at least anyway. Y'all be cool with that?
Sure.
All right. Couldn't hear y'all's voice. I could feel the wind from your head shaking.
22 years
Yes,
of public
sir, absolutely.
education. I'll take anything that's free.
Goodness. Right.
because they're already taking all the free stuff from you anyway. They get free work. Yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna share. I'll share it in the chat here for you. By the way, I keep looking up because I've got this humongous monitor in front of me. Now it looks kind of weird, but try that. Ah, yeah. Look at that.
Very nice.
See it?
It worked for me.
Awesome. So I'm pretty sure you can download all that stuff. This is what I give parents after I make a diagnosis of ADHD. And in there is also the Executive Skills in Children and Adolescents e-textbook. I know that we're gonna have to wrap up because I got my next class, but let's see if I can show it to you. Yeah, so this is what that book looks like. And I'm telling you, it is like gold in information, not just for ADHD, but just all of it for kids, for children and adolescents. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
I will. Yep, absolutely. And I will give. So for week 4 quiz, what I did is I went back and changed it to where any of those answers are right, and if you've already taken it, it should regrade it, and if it doesn't, what I'm doing is I am opening it up for 2 more attempts, because it's a lot easier to do that than to go back and try to change the grades. It's hard to explain. But so if it doesn't automatically regrade it, that means that you're just gonna have to go back and retake it. I'm sorry, but at least you'll have 2 more attempts, and just know that whatever you select on that one question, you'll get full credit for. Does that work for y'all? Okay.
Okay, and for regular quizzes, we just get 2 attempts, right? It was just the first, the midterm, and the final that we get 3.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll have to double check. I've gone back and forth on that quite a few times, but I'm pretty sure I just do 2 for each quiz. Yep.
Okay.
I get all that stuff jumbled up in my head because I teach 3 classes at a time, and my 2 psychopath courses, I always like calling them that. Y'all are my psychopath students, by the way. That's how I think of y'all in my head. Y'all are probably not psychopaths, but then I teach counting assessment as well, and then I'll sometimes teach theories and methods, and I've got them all different, and I should probably just make them all the same. But yeah, if
You
you run
should.
into
They should all
problems,
be 3.
I know. I think that was the direction I wanted to go, but that every time I do that, I'm just like, man, but how easy am I making this class? Like, I don't want to just make it so ridiculously easy. At the same time, I don't care about your grades. Like, y'all are here to learn. I know y'all are learning. Like, I mean, we're in grad school. Like, I don't care if you make 100 or 1,000 out of 100. Extra A's. Like, what matters is that you guys are being facilitated, your passions being facilitated, so that I can just help point you in an efficient route to learning what you already want to learn anyway. That's my goal. So if you make 100 in the class, don't think, well, that was kind of a ridiculous class, because I teach with other professors that intentionally make it hard. I know that. We have those conversations, and every time I'm just like, what are you measuring? Are you measuring how good these students are at taking hard tests, or are you measuring what they're actually learning? Well, it's impossible to actually measure what you're learning, because the truth is that we're in a specialty that is not like just hard science. This isn't chemistry necessarily. You can pass your licensure exam and still be a terrible therapist. So I'm going to trust that you guys are going to learn. I'm going to do everything I can to make it as flexible as I can and facilitate an efficient pathway, and hopefully expose you to some new ideas and concepts that are beyond just the DSM-5. Because man, what a frustrating book that is sometimes. Yeah. Thank you guys for your patience. I'm looking forward to next week, especially too, so we can keep on trucking. Week 4 is fixed, and you've got access now to all that stuff. But I will upload that also to Moodle for those that are watching, and they're going to be mad that they didn't get it in the chat. So, all right. Y'all have a great rest of your evening. Happy 4th of July.
Thank
Happy
you.
4th of
You
July.
too.
Thanks, Dr. Armstrong.
Y'all take care.